All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the what is this, like the 15th stream? No, maybe the 30th. In other case, welcome to the 0.6.4 celebration live stream, or Thrivestream if you prefer. We just released our latest update today, so we'll be here to talk about that, trials and tribulations we went through, and what's coming next. Here today we have hosts of our programmers. First thing, Game Dungeon, if they would be interested in introducing themselves. Can't remember if they have a mic. Then we have Hero Lanen, our lead programmer and one of the primary driving forces behind this massive update. Then we have Them, who did quite a bit themselves. But first comes to mind is Rotation, if you'd like to introduce yourself. Oh, I forgot to
Yeah.
introduce Hero Lanen. Oops.
Ha! I get to speak before the lead. I did a lot of stuff involving turning, some of which turning in AI, some of which just turning. Apparently, it had a spin theme, this release, just how things turned out.
Yeah, and if you would like to introduce yourself here, Landon, sorry about that.
Sure. Hello. Uh, I'm the lead programmer, and also I was the person doing most of the uh, backend refactoring stuff for this release. So I've been extremely busy with that, and then trying to fix as many bugs as possible before the release, so that people can actually uh, play this release this year and not encounter an absolute ton of bugs, but I bet there will still be so many things that will need to be fixed that we'll need to make a patch release in like a week.
Thank you, here, Landon. And finally, we have Titan over there, who's been responsible for a few changes in the recent update. Relatively new face to the dev team, if you'd like to say hello.
Hello, I'm new. Yeah, I've worked on whatever really I felt like doing. Yeah.
All right. And that's everyone. Oh, yeah, and myself, the lead game designer, and kind of the person behind most of the progress updates and other writing and correspondence. Other than that, I just kind of sit over here and just hang out. Yep,
Other than
yeah,
being all the game design and the outreach.
yep. Just a small part of Thrive. So, with that out of the way, let us begin. If we'd like to decide where to start.
I think we can start with the usual going over the major things in the new release.
Yeah. Well, I suppose I'll begin with the new upgrades and modifications you might find in a game. Uh, Not anything particularly groundbreaking, but we have three in total. First being the vacuole specialization, which is a bit of a new feature with the ability to increase your storage of specific compounds at the expense of others. So instead of storage just being a generalized +1 to everything, +6 to specific things, or in this case, +16, which is pretty huge actually. And you can specialize your cell to store uh, one compound in particular. So if you want a lot of glucose, you can do that. Or if you want a lot of extra slime for your slime jet, that's a thing you could do now. If anyone has any comments on that. Oh yeah, and chemoreceptors can actually sense specific species now. So if you have a favorite prey, you can specialize yourself to hunt down that specific cell at all times. Just be careful not to drive them to extinction. And last but not least, we have, escapes me at the moment. What was it? All right, yes, the toxin pilus, or the injectosome, as you might call it. It's a bit less noticeable in effect, but it changes your pilots to deal a little bit of toxin damage instead of draw physical damage. Very helpful if you have some particularly physically resistant cells. Might come in a larger use later on once we develop more ways to protect yourself physically. Any comments from the programming team?
I think that was a pretty good overview of the new features. Did you mention already the? I guess you did say something about the massive background rework of the microbe stage.
We haven't quite gotten into that yet, but yeah, that was the bulk of the update, was refactoring basically everything in the background. From the physics, which has been totally reworked, and that was a headache and a half to deal with, I must admit. But it's definitely coming along nicely. Then we have what was it, the ECS system that you're using now?
Yeah,
you could explain that?
I'd call it ECS Architecture that is now used in the game.
Essentially, we're handling and Hereland did this, not me, the little creatures differently in a code structure in a way to make them compute faster. Really, the idea is to not have everybody's computer turn into bricks when there's a whole bunch of microbes, but the back end explanation is pretty complicated, so it's hard to communicate that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and even in the development team, at times this rework has been called just a physics rework, but it's actually a fundamentally more deeper redo of the microbe stage gameplay.
Looking at the code again is like meeting a person after 10 years and they're a completely different person. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to have to get to know you again.
Yeah, so put simply, on the player's end, you're just going to have some better performance, which is huge, really. You might notice physics behaving a lot differently. In fact, one of my favorite changes is the pulling cilia, which can actually end up pulling you towards larger objects now.
Yeah,
Plus, sorry?
I just want to give a fun anecdote that I specifically wrote in the comments for the code that the game now has Newton's third law implemented. So
No more cilia rockets?
yeah, I explicitly wanted to
I loved cilia
make
rockets.
it follow Newton's third law. So I specifically put that in there now, as it was missing previously.
Another great thing is the ability to just push smaller cells aside. They used to just about stop you in the tracks, but now you just bump them away and watch as they spiral out of control. Very nice feeling that. Especially if you're fast and big. So yeah, that being said, it's still a little rough around the edges as we haven't quite ironed out the kinks and the balancing and the constants and all of that. So things may be a bit funky in some places, but we'll get to that in time. And I apologize for any inconveniences you might find. All right, so is there anything else we might need to add to the refactor?
I guess I could say that this isn't even like the final form of the performance, because there wasn't enough time to do all of the performance improvements that I wanted to make. So I'm hoping that I can dig up even a bit more performance for the next release by applying multi-threading to all of the new entity systems, as the architecture allows very easily to separate out different parts that can run in parallel. So I'm hoping that the game would be able to use a lot more threads to improve performance.
That's a big one. The more performance we have, the more we can bog down the game with even more calculations. And yeah, as Game Dungeon has just got on, another big thing we've had is some updates to Thrivestream, which I'm personally excited for anything detailing Thrivestream because it's a great source for any information in the game. And this new feature is the organelle pages, or the wiki section of that Thrivestream. That's a big one because now, instead of having to look up any kind of help or guides or whatever on the game, outside of the game, you can now, if you ever have any questions about something, simply type in, say, lysosome in the Thrivestream. It'll show you that precise page, and it has all the information you could ever want on the part. The mass, or density now, rather, the size, costs, what it does, what it can do, the best way to use it, all of that and more. And in fact, we even have a theory section that'll be detailing just how it works in reality as well. If you've ever been curious on where we get the information and background of these parts in the game. So all in all, it's pretty in-depth and exciting, at least for me. And you can look forward to even more information and such later on, because I will admit not all of the pages are filled out yet, but we will be getting through that in due time. Plus, of course, there will definitely be more information in the Thrivestream as time goes on.
That's something we're just going to have to build out bit by bit. I think the framework's there, just the content will need its filling.
Yep. I don't enjoy writing, but I will be doing it eventually.
I was about to say, maybe you volunteered for a bit much of the writing then, because you probably write 90% of our words.
Yeah. Somebody has to do it.
You wrote the script for this live stream. I'm just reading what you wrote.
Yeah, did you put in the music bot doing something strange?
Was it? I mean, I heard it playing something, but I also wasn't really paying
Yeah,
attention.
I don't think that's an official Thrive track, so we might not have permission to play that.
What was it playing?
I think it just looked up something like Thrive on YouTube and played the first video.
Oh, maybe you should just send a link. Well, anywho, where was I? Right, so Thrivestream, check it out when y'all have time. Might learn a thing or two about some of the parts. Next up, let's see, so got that physics, got the upgrades. We didn't really touch Auto E though any, did we? No. Was there anything else we changed that's worth mentioning? I know here Elaine fixed a couple crashes that have been reported for a long time, had you not?
That wasn't actually me. That was Cash Knox, I think,
Oh.
who really decided that the community deserves 2 multicellular crash fixes.
I see. Yeah, we have that to look forward to, a more stable multicellular stage. Thanks, Cash Knox. Alright. So, that covers the basics. I guess we can talk about what we look forward to in the future then? Oh, and look who just joined us.
There was also the editor UI improvements.
Ah, right. Was that you who did that?
The technical side, yeah, not the art side.
Gotcha. Care to explain
Updating
the
the
differences?
tooltips took forever.
Okay. Yes, so this developer who just joined us, Juzo, is one of our theorists, a new face around here, and they've been taking notes and giving us to work around with all sorts of new theoretical sciences. Well, sciences that aren't theoretical, but theory. Man, I hate, like, theoretical is always misused. It always gets the wrong idea. Anyway. So, yeah. On to the future then. know here Elena mentioned an interest in working on the Godot update 4.0.
Yeah, I think early next year or at the latest quarter 2 is the time when we can switch to Godot 4 and well, I guess we'll just deal with any old computer compatibility problems as they show up, but I don't think we can wait that many more years for Godot 4 to be improved. We didn't even find a way to give them money to improve the bugs we experience with it, so that's a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, that's something to look forward to. And remind me what Godot 4.0 will be bringing to the table for Thrive once we transition to it.
I think one of the biggest things will be switching to the .NET runtime away from Mono. So many small annoying things are wrong with it. So that will be a lot nicer. We'll get some more modern C# feature support, and the dynamic library loading will be much less completely weird. Stuff like that. We can share some of the code between the scripts and the game itself, giving some pretty nice benefits there. And then of course all of the new Godot renderer things and improvements, and probably we can maybe use the multi-threaded node processing as well for some things. So I'm expecting quite many nice improvements and fearing all of the new bugs and old computer compatibility problems we'll get, but I think we will want to switch in a few months.
All right, something to look forward to. Maybe we can finally get Nims to start touching the procedural generation of the the word's lost in me. Maybe we can get Nims to get his graphics programming changes in.
The 3D
after
membranes?
Yeah, the membranes. Yeah.
The blob stuff.
The blob stuff. Very important. Yeah, definitely something to look forward to. More immediate grand scheme of things. I'm personally wanting to get some more balance changes out. Noticed starthing's a very easy thing to do lately, so I might try and adjust the scales a bit, especially given the feedback I got after that community poll I posted a while back. Lots of people were stating problems with finding food and surviving, so might tweak things just to be a little bit easier because of that. Other than that, bug fixes abound. Bug fixes abound. Yep. Anybody else have some ideas for the future, or shall we move on to the Q&A?
I'd like to finally finish properly the fog of war for the next release. So look forward to that. I have started, and hopefully I'll be getting out the first version soon.
All right. Right, yes, and as Game Dungeon's mentioning, we were working on an organelle that didn't quite make it into release because it is a bit unorthodox in its implementation due to basically it's Rubisco protein, or Rubisco, how do you prefer to pronounce it? And basically it takes ATP and turns it into glucose, which is a bit complicated when you already have something that takes glucose and turns it into ATP. So balancing that loop has been quite problematic, and it's still work in progress, but I think we might be able to get it in the next release. All right, and I suppose that is all. So we shall move on to the Q&A.
I'll just quickly mention that the next release is about 0.6.5 and not the very likely patch release 0.6.4.1.
That's fair. I'll probably try and shove my balance changes in before that.
Yeah, I think the timeline will be that in 1 week or maybe 9 or 10 days at most is the time when the patch release needs to be put out.
Noted. Great. I have
You
to
are
get
not
on that
gonna-
then.
You go, Buckley.
Huh? I already said what I said my bit.
I'm just saying you're not going to have a flawless release on this bigger refactor, so the patch was kind of inevitable.
Yep. All right. Q&A.
Yeah, I have here the priority questions prepared.
Alrighty. Is it possible we can get some gameplay footage while we're going through this, or
It would have to be really small on the screen.
gives us something to look at? All right. So let's go ahead and start us off. Looks like we've got a few questions from Doom Lightning, and we'll start with number 1. Have you ever had a decision that you would like to add something to the game, but you don't feel it fits, or that it goes against something that already exists in the game? Oh, goodness, if you only knew.
You could tell them.
I mean, goodness, in fact, a large problem in the earlier days before even I was part of the team was there's a lot of idea people that just kept on piling ideas on the team, and not really enough people to implement them or to really sort them out to make anything particularly cohesive.
But do you ever feel that, other than that idea that which will not be named, that there is anything that we flat out rejected, other than just saying we don't have the resources for this? Is there anything we said, even if we could afford to add it, we will choose not to?
There's a lot of less so strictly featured, strictly speaking, but more so ways to implement them. We've definitely said, nah, we're not doing it that way. But with how the development goes these days, it's more so we'll shove things to the side that we don't really say no. It's more so, oh, parasites? Yeah, that'd be cool to have, but that's not going to be the focus. So we just kind of set it to the side. We have our concrete plans. That's what we're focusing on. Everything else is just kind of secondary. We just put to the side. Maybe once we get everything concrete and done, then we'll go back and maybe add those additional features if we're able. So that's kind of how it goes for the most part.
The great filter of actually doing work.
Pretty much. Multiplayer is probably a good example of this. For the longest time, with multiplayer, it's not feasible because I mean, we'd have to balance it, we'd have to focus on it. It's a lot of stuff. It's net code, which is kind of the horror of its own, right? But I mean, if one developer just happens to say, "Hey, I'm gonna do this," and they do it good, I mean, why not? Might as well tack it on. So that's kind of how development works, and somehow it works well. Of course, that's not saying we don't have a focus. I mean, we had our release plan for the entire microbe stage kind of set in stone for the most part, and we've been following that over time. Right now, we're kind of in the combat and gameplay section of the implementation map. So yeah, moving on. Number 2, do you have a basis for an idea of how the world map will look or be created? Can the players influence it, or is there a tectonic shift? Oh man, I went over that a long time ago. Let me go ahead and pull up that stuff. But yeah, so we do have some fairly concrete plans on how the patch map will play out. The microbe stage will remain as it is for the most part. Basically, kind of obtuse in its display, and that's intended. That's when you're a microbe, everything's, well, beyond your scale, so to speak. But once you reach the multicellular stage, and more importantly, the macroscopic stage, that's when it will reveal the world as it's meant to be, and more importantly, the full patch map, which, if I could just... Hold on. Hard for me to focus on talking and doing this at the same time. Is that it? Is what I'm looking for? Yeah, okay. Let me just select these images in here. Whoop. Boop. So yeah, just pretend that man, it reminds me of the old board game I played once. Just pretend that there's actually a whole sphere with hexagons on it and not a flat plane, because I'm not really good at making spheres. Bear with me with that. But
No one is with hexagons.
no. In fact, one of the biggest problems with the icosphere approach with patch map is not all of them are going to be hexagons. Some of them are going to be, what was it, pentagon? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to
But-
say that's the easiest way to make a sphere out of polygon shapes is hexagons and pentagons, which means some land is more adjacent than others.
Yeah. So that's basically what we got in mind. It's just an icosphere, which should work well. And instead of having a bunch of individual hexes being their own environment, basically it's a bunch of hexes of the same type grouped together into a region. So, yeah. Now, it's not entirely thought out to 100%, but that's kind of our plan for now, basically. And tectonic plate shifting and the likes is still up in the air on if we want to try implementing it or not. But having the icosphere approach makes it at least a little bit feasible. In regards to patches, that is. Lord knows what horrors we'll face in the graphics programming side. Alright. Moving on. Number 3. What do you expect to be able to do the next year to the game? Next year.
That's coming up. It's December.
Oh, goodness, you're right.
I think we already covered quite many things of that by talking about the next release.
That's fair enough. Personally, I am hoping we can get a form of the editor helper in sometime soon. That's a big design that I'm really excited for to help players out. But other than that, yeah. Alright. And let's see here. Number 4. Do you see this year as successful for you as far as this game is concerned? I would say yes. Anyone else in agreement? Proposal?
This would be a real awkward time to say we failed this year.
I mean, progress was made, so I'd assume that if anything, yeah, work's been done. Progress has been made.
Didn't go backwards, didn't stall. We've gone forward, so success.
As long as you're moving forward, you're good.
All right.
Okay, Buckley, here's a
Good
question.
progress is good progress.
I'm listening.
What is your criteria for a successful year next year? Let's hold future Buckley against past Buckley.
If we've managed to implement a few more of the roadmap items, then I'd say that's successful. That's about my criteria. With a project like this, you just gotta count your successes when you have them.
Very fair. It's on record.
Let's play this back in a year and see.
All right. Shoot, where was I? Number 5. At the current rate, how long do you think you'll be done with the microbial phase? Probably asking how long it will be until we're done. Again, estimates on time are largely difficult to handle in a team like this, where people come and go as they please. We do have guaranteed progress at least, so assuming that it is just Hero Lane and working on everything, and just kind of rolling out every other developer, what do you think? How long do you think it would be until you got to 1.0 Hero Lane?
I'd like to say that about maybe 2 years would be kind of starting to be realistic about the microbe states. Of course, there's some roadmap items that I have no clue how, if only there's me available, how I would do those.
I'm assuming that's mostly the graphics programming side of things.
Yeah, some of the more trickier, and of course there's a ton of balancing stuff, so if I spend a ton of time balancing the game, then that will obviously push back the release. But if there's at least like one person who can tweak slightly the game balance to get it good without needing my time to do that fine adjustment tweaking, then that's going to speed up things a lot. And of course, for next year, depending on how long these last performance improvements and the Godot 4 conversion takes, as well as the Mac release needs to be fixed again and made. So those will take some time away from what I can spend next year on microbe stage features. So I hope it takes less than 6 months to do those. Then I think we'll get pretty good progress on the microbe features.
Well, it's good to know that probably roughly 2 years is not a bad measurement at all. I personally would have guessed more like 5 or so. But yeah, I guess now is a good time to shamelessly plug in our call for programmers. We need you to help with Thrive development any way you may be capable. Specifically programming, that is always a huge bottleneck. If you've got some programming talents with C+ or C#, please, by all means, we could use your help.
Yeah, definitely we can always use more skilled programmers. May make all of the. I think we are again under 600 issues thanks to this refactoring. Also at the same time solving about 30 previous issues, as I knew about those, so I could carefully adjust the code when converting it to avoid those issues. But still we have like 570 open tasks for mostly programmers to.
Alrighty. With that said, let's see here. How do you see the community of mod creators integrating? There were few mods in the past, but we had your idea for a program that will allow easy integration of mods. we do have a mod manager. It is fully functional. However, I personally think modding is probably going to be very slow until we have a concrete microbe stage. Because as it is now, the constant updates to it makes it kind of hard for a mod to stay in vogue, so to speak. Anyone has some comments?
Uh, I think modding is pretty pretty different for Thrive as other games because someone can just make their changes official. So that
That's
alleviates
true.
quite a bit of the modding, and I think we've already, or at least I've already done almost everything that like a normal game would need for a modding. There's a few modding hooks already in the game. We have the mod manager with load order management and other stuff like that. So I mean, we definitely have the base for modding to start, but I think stuff like tutorials and documentation and stuff like that is what's actually needed. So like the ball needs to get rolling somehow for modding to start happening. And then once it starts happening and people find out how they can make mods, then more and more mods will appear and better tutorials, etc.
Good to know. Thanks for your insight. So last question. How do you manage to combine work on a game with core everyday... excuse me. Ooh, that was an accent that just jumped through there. For with your everyday life. Goodness. So, in my case, I have a schedule, and other than that, I just work on it whenever I feel like it. So every Saturday, I start writing the progress update at around 10 or 11 a.m. And that's not the only concrete thing. Other than that, I just kind of feeling bored, have some great ideas, just jot them down or start tweaking things in the game. And here, Elena's case, he's paid to do it. So he just goes to work.
Yeah, I guess I have it pretty easy like that, but I will admit that I have worked quite many extra evenings to get this release out this year. And yeah, I guess that is it. So I've been sacrificing quite a bit of my spare time to try to get this release out with a more reasonable schedule.
All right. Anyone else?
I want to say with
Go on.
I just want to say with things like this, since I was always doing it just in free time, that I got some really good advice early on in life that if you actually use a stopwatch and count your time, you are usually not running out of hours in a day. You're running out of enthusiasm, motivation, discipline to actually get things done. It's only a few hours, but like a few hours a day of just actual focused coding and yes, I want to do this is kind of the difference, not so much time to live.
Yeah, definitely in programming, if you are motivated, you can do more in one day than in 1 week if you are just lazily trying to go through the motions of working on some programming thing.
Which is the upside here. We don't have any programmers who don't want to be here. Unless you don't want to be here anymore, Harlan, and I understand.
Well, I sometimes wish when people find the strangest bugs and start reporting them en masse that maybe it would be better to not have to deal with that.
You're paid, which ironically means you're the only one allowed to be disgruntled. Everybody else volunteered.
All right. I gotta run in about 5 minutes. So that was all the priority questions from Doom Lightning.
And yeah, we have this time actually. I think this is pretty rare, but we have two people asking priority questions. I think these other ones are pretty general and random. So sorry, sorry, Blackjack Psych about that. But do we have people like who have VR gear they want to enthusiastically talk about?
I don't have a VR headset, so I can't really comment on the first question.
Yeah, I don't have one either yet. I might in a year or two, but not currently.
Do you think Thrive will be nominated for the Game Rewards when it's released? I would certainly try to get it nominated once it's in a more complete state.
Well, yeah, that will depend on how much community we can gather around and keep by the time Thrive is complete. But I think our Thrive will gradually complete. So 1 year it will be already excellent game, and then next year we'll say that okay, it's now basically done. We are leaving early access. Not going to be a huge splash, I don't think. So we might be overlooked for that reason.
Personally, I like to think
Would
that
be
once
cool,
we have...
though.
I'm sorry?
Would be cool though.
Yeah. I like to think that once the micro stage is complete, people might get a lot more on board with the idea of Thrive and excited about it. I mean, sure, slow going, but having a complete micro stage kind of proves a thing or two, you know? I mean, we'll have a roughly complete game at that point, so you could just enjoy the micro stage, and then we'll be working on the next stage. If that makes any sense. I'd personally see it as a huge accomplishment.
I think there's two axes we're being judged on here. One is, will the dream of Thrive ever accomplish? Are you ever getting to the Ascension Gate, in a non-prototype state? And the two is, okay, what is the game today, and is it a good game on its own merits? I think there's that in place, and that will the project finish, and kind of different things will give people confidence in each area.
Well put. Anywho, did you watch the Game Rewards? Yes. Has one of you won a Steam Deck during the giveaway, or was it broken for you too? Did anyone win a Steam Deck?
Nope.
Okay. Will Thrive get deck verified one day? I would like to think so. Probably not priority though. I have seen that there's one person out there somewhere in the world who does play Thrive on their Steam Deck. Someone out there.
If that's you, please call in.
Yeah, I think it is playable enough. I did actually try to launch it on my Steam Deck, and I think it does now correctly do that and work. But so the reason why it is not Steam Deck verified or playable was the old launcher setup. So now asking for a retest, it would probably be at least Steam Deck playable. But I kind of want to wait until we would get a Steam Deck verified rating before asking for the retest from Valve. And for that, I think we need a bit more of the about 50 controller-related issues fixed before it is a good experience with a controller like a Steam Deck. And also, I think the launcher will need a few Steam Deck specific things, like it will need to enforce the close launcher window when starting Thrive to ensure that there can't be compositor related bugs, which was the reason why Drive didn't get initially Steam Deck verified.
Right. I'll take this as my chance to run. Everyone, you had a good day, and thanks for coming. I'll talk to y'all next time. I gotta run and mix some paint. So farewell.
Right. Bye, Buckley. So that was all of the priority questions. Then we had at the non-priority questions thread, as well as chat questions. In case someone hasn't noticed, I've been kind of playing Thrive here. I did kind of fit everything on screen, but it looks pretty messy like this.
It's pretty colors.
Do we have someone who can take over from Buckley going through the the normal forum questions and chat questions alternating?
Sure, I can start asking some questions, or reading off the questions, asking them to the rest of the team. Do we have a list of the chat questions to alternate between?
I think Game Dungeon is looking at the chat questions.
Okay. Well, I will start with the first forum question. So I think this is going to go mostly to Hirulainen, but anyone else on the team is welcome to answer. How satisfied are you with the transition to the Jolt physics engine in terms of benefits versus costs?
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting question, and I think this kind of shows how difficult it has been to communicate what's actually changing. So this question just explicitly talks about the physics engine, but like then asks about code readability. So that is more about the ECS refactoring that had like the code changes. Like just changing out the physics engine would have been much different. So I guess I'll answer like both questions at once about the physics engine and the overall change, and I'm very happy with it. I think the code architecture is much better now. We don't have one massive God class that contains everything that's called a microbe, and now we have more like each aspect of the microbe functionality is a separate component and system that manages that one specific part. So I think the code readability is a lot better now than before, and the optimization is also better. And of course, related to the physics engine, it is faster than the Godot Palette physics engine integration. So physics engine itself is faster, and I find it a lot easier to tune the physics now that we have like a direct integration with the physics engine instead of going through the game engine to get to the physics. And I'm pretty happy with how well I think I managed to get, for example, the physics collision data transferred from the engine to the gameplay code.
Fair. So it sounds like a lot of subtle stuff that the players will judge over time, because it's all not obvious.
Yeah. Unless you are really technically minded about game development or a programmer, this is stuff that you can't really grasp that well. But I think I'm pretty happy with the performance improvement. Like that has been the single most complaining about the game, and there was basically nothing left that me or anyone else on the team knew how to do to improve the performance. So now we are at a much better position. If in the future people complain about the performance again, there's still a lot more room to try different things and improve things. Whereas before I felt like we were completely trapped with the game performance and only being able to reduce the number of entities, try to improve the performance.
Yeah, I mean, I think my take on it was also just that, if we're already having these problems in microbe stage, how are we going to do multicellular? Like, we know the game's supposed to get bigger, and if we're already pinned to a corner, we got to do this. All right. Unless anyone else has anything to add, I say we take a change from a very difficult question to probably a very easy and fun one. Creative answers only here. From Monty 3, does your creature have to go on land to advance? What if I want to make a fish man?
So I know at one point I had mentioned, like in our chats, whatnot, of allowing amphibians to possibly exist, but the advancement to land would have to occur in the first place, regardless. But you could be semi-aquatic still. I mean, that's just my idea.
I am glad you are the more open-minded of this team. We need that perspective from someone, right?
I'm sure, yeah, it helps.
Just giving you a hard time. It's the classic question.
Nothing wrong.
All right, back to the community forums. This might have already been answered, but first question was, what is the hardest part of creating this update?
I'd say just a huge amount of work. Like each time I port the Thrive code base to a new engine or new something, you always have to appreciate how many little features there are everywhere that have been added. I don't think people can really appreciate how much stuff there's actually in the Thrive code base, because you see these microbes here on screen, but you don't realize how many little tiny bugs there have been that need fixing, and little features that you don't even really notice. But definitely when you need to read all of the code and make sure it still works, you have to appreciate the amount of stuff there is. So just how much time it takes to convert everything, that's been the trickiest part.
Okay. Now here's a tangential question. What are y'all's thoughts on how the community handled and helped with the bug testing before this release? A question from the community about the community.
I think it was very helpful because basically this time, as well as basically every time there's community testing, is that people find just the weirdest bugs that none of us developers have seen. So it's really helpful to ensure that these bugs don't show up when we make the releases fully public.
You hear that, guys? You're being helpful. Any other thoughts on that, or are we moving on? All right. Back to the YouTube chat, and now another future question. Is there a possibility that you can use copper as a mechanic to use in metabolism?
As I said in like the podcast chat, We'd have to like research that, figure out how it would work, and then also figure out if we'd want to implement it into the game. Because I mean, I was gonna mention something as well in here, but because I don't know how. I mean, I don't know the coding side of this as well, but like adding another compound could mess with the spawn rates of the current compounds in the game.
So I can speak to defense of the compound spawn rates. They are independent until we had so many that were crashing the game. The theory I cannot speak to at all, or how that fits into game balance.
Yeah, and that's where that research part would have to come in first to make sure that it works. I mean, if it wasn't a thing, we could always try to have it be in the non lock stuff, since I think it's only the thermosynthesis that's in there currently.
Yeah, I think that's our only non-lock organelle right now. Maybe that's where you end up putting all the ideas that half work. All right, back to the thread. With this update, will it be easier to program Thrive moving forward or harder, and why?
Does anyone else have any thoughts about this? Because if I say something, then because I did the porting, I'm much more familiar with the code now.
The code makes sense to you because you wrote it. No, I get what you're saying.
Well,
I don't
most of
feel
it
like-
makes sense. But go ahead.
I don't feel like I've touched the code enough after ECS refactor. You know, as you know, I kind of went off and did auto evo stuff while most of the refactor was happening. So I kind of have to get to know this new code. I mean, I'm definitely very hopeful it's going to click with me faster, but I mean, at the very least, we shouldn't be hitting performance problems. So I guess I don't know the code enough to have an opinion. I don't know how other devs feel.
I was going to say that I know every part of the code well except the engulfing, because that engulfing feature that when you touch something it gets absorbed into you. Like that one single feature probably cost 2 or 3 weeks porting time. That's such a complex feature. And even now most of the bugs, and I think just about the only crash that can happen in the release is related to engulfing. So that's a really difficult system to try to understand even for me. Engulfing system.
Did you ever figure out the compound cloud spawning? Because I remember that baffled all of us long ago when I was working with the spawn reworks.
Okay, that's another thing. I
All right, we
don't
found two.
Like I don't understand the density random. I know that the spawning is like random and there's like spawn chances for each of the spawners. With randomness, I don't have enough of a math background to like analyze the randomness and come up with some kind of nice visualization of the random spawn rates for stuff.
Well, our next question, I think, is probably handled by what we've said before, but if anyone has anything to add, current plannings for 0.6.5. Anyone want to chime in with something extra there? That's what I would have expected. I feel like that's one of the first things we tend to cover. Hopefully we've already answered your question. Going back to YouTube's questions, from Sir Pineapple the Wise. Will plagues be a thing in the civilization stage? This user wants to make something like the simian flu from Planet of the Apes and wipe out their entire civilization and wreck their game with a plague or something like that. A future feature, any thoughts on plagues in what I guess would be society or industrial stages?
I mean, we'll probably simulate some kind of disease mechanics as like one controlling factor that prevents the player from just building bigger and bigger cities. So. But it hasn't like really been planned out. Like if you look at the schedule, we're at least like 10 years away from having to design the full mechanics for society or industrial stage.
Yeah, I feel like we're just making promises for the developers that may or may not be here in the future. Maybe they'll be us, maybe they won't. Back to the thread, and the rest of you guys cut me off if I'm going too fast. But back to the thread, Nigel originally said, respectfully, are you guys doing okay? But then crossed out respectfully. So just take this question disrespectfully if at all possible. But how are you guys doing? Are you guys doing okay? Was there too much, particularly here, I would ask, too much crunch during the ECS refactor trying to finally get this thing out the door?
Well, it hasn't been just the ECS stuff, but as I moved a couple of months ago, I've been doing a lot of apartment stuff as well. So when I haven't been working on Thrive, I've been doing that stuff. So I've had very little free time over the last month and a half. So I'll definitely take advantage of Christmas holidays.
Oh, do you get holidays off at your job?
Yeah, I plan to use 4 vacation days.
I hope you enjoyed it. It is well deserved. Rolling back to, and I do see, guys, that you have a bunch of stuff going on in the chat. I don't know what to acknowledge or read out here. I'm not used to this multi-channel. I don't have Buckley's skills, is what I'm trying to say. So we have a new question from the YouTube, where the parasitic or symbolic relationships be an idea considered in future game development, or is that already ruled out as a future feature?
I mean, I think in part that should be left up to the programmers themselves to figure out if they think they can handle doing that when we get to the possibility of those being implemented.
I probably also want to ask, what do you mean by parasitic or symbiotic, Are you asking me if I can live on a tree, or are you asking me if I'm going to play the entire game from the intestines of something else? Because those are two quite dramatically different asks.
I mean, true. I'm assuming parasitic is using another organism, like living inside of it, and symbiotic is 2 animals helping each other. That's my assumption that I'm going with. But those would likely have to be implemented based on when those stages are more stable and usable, along with whether or not the programmers feel that they can pull that off.
I would agree. I think that's kind of our general answer to features that far ahead.
If
So,
this was specifically about like living as a parasite within a bigger creature, then this has been answered quite many times before. And the answer is that that's like really far away stuff. Because that basically doesn't lead to the being able to beat the game, because if you're a single cell thing and you live inside a multicellular creature, you are at least a billion years behind. So basically 1 editor cycle and bam, that other species can rush through all of the society stages and beat the game. So it's basically a lose condition, and as such it should only be given priority after the game is complete otherwise. But of course, if there's some really enthusiastic person on the team they could work on that if they so desire, but like official goal, that's really, really far off.
All right, back to the thread. Some really open-ended questions, so feel free to anybody throw out what thoughts you have. What are your thoughts on the community as a whole? And another, how are y'all doing? A lot of y'alls today. Any miscellaneous thoughts on the community people just want to say about the kind of people that have kept following us for all this time on the craziness that is Thrive? Oh, we got good community, and yes, I am still alive. Two very good opinions. I approve of both of these.
Was that Willow's question?
Sorry? Yes, that was Willow's questions. Was what are your thoughts on the community, and how are you doing?
Yeah, I think we already answered pretty much both of those questions.
We get redundancies often. Well then, moving forward, it looks like our YouTube questions are empty for now, or at least they've not been passed up to me. I'm so distant from YouTube. We have two suggestions for future organelles. The Nemocyst, in parentheses harpoon, and Haptoneme, I might need a theorist to help me, as a grappling hook. Any wild thoughts on grappling hooks in microbe stage?
I mean, I think the closest thing I could think of to that would be like the pseudopods that amoebas use, but like a full-on grappling hook, I don't think there's any microbes that even have anything like that.
Do you know what a haptoneme is?
I'll quickly look that up.
Yeah, that's a new thing for me to Google. We might have just learned some biology. Thank you. We have, with the release of this update, what is your next main focus? I assume no one has any extra stuff to add to that. And then we have an ask about, do you think the next update will take a similar amount of time? I assume we're talking about the 0.6.5, not the bug fix. Do we foresee
probably.
another? You think another time frame like this last release took?
I don't see that happening because now that the game is basically playable and there's no like big refactoring left, so we can basically just pick a time when we release, and then just release all of the fixes and improvements we have gotten done. So of course, like if like I have in progress that big extra multi-threading thing, then that might push back the release a bit, but I'm pretty confident that we can go back to the 2 to 3 month release cycle starting now again.
If we can maintain that potentially releasable increment, we'll have more control over when we can put out new versions.
Yeah, this time it was different because like a month ago the game was basically entirely unplayable. Like there was no way to make a new release.
I have a lot of great glitch footage from those days, but probably not a great game to release on Steam to paying customers or fans. We appreciate you all.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we don't get a bunch of negative Steam reviews due to the game being now probably a bit more buggier than before.
Guys, if you see a bug, tell us. We are happy to work with it. Don't assume we just abandon you with the bugs. This is part of the process.
I'd like to interject that you may have noticed that the gameplay is currently frozen on stream. And I decided to take this time to check one of these things. Like here we can see that like this visually much smaller cell, me as the player cannot engulf this, and the reason is pretty simple. The player's engulfing size is 28, and this small microbe, even though it has normal size of 8, it has grown a lot, and it is now size 29. So due to the organelle count here, it cannot be engulfed. Though I'm not entirely confident that there isn't some kind of prokaryoted size adjustment bug here, but at least that is the explanation, that the game logic for checking the engulfing is correct.
I'm curious how many of our players have noticed something like that and have wondered that logic. I don't know if we communicate that anywhere. That's an interesting thought. All right, moving on. We have 2 questions that I think have already been answered. One is, with the rework done, would you say it was worth it? And what is the next gameplay feature you think you'll add to the game? Unless we have any particular bets on the next feature to get over the finish line, I'm not sure there's anything more we can add to the conversation with these 2. And if that is the case, I will move forward. We have one question.
Oh, yeah,
Go ahead.
I just found the bug.
Oh,
So the
live bugs.
So the eukaryotic size buff is not applied to the engulfing size. It is not adjusted based on if something is a bacteria or not.
So, to everyone who's not exactly sure what that means, if you notice that when you become a eukaryote, you get bigger than just the size of the nucleus would suggest, that's actually because prokaryotes, non-nucleus cells, are half the size, even for the same organelles, as eukaryotes. So, for that logic, we have some doubling that has to happen, which is why the nucleus cells are always big. Sounds like that is not being applied to the engulfing logic, so that eukaryotes are not as big to the game's logic as they look on screen, which might explain why we have big stuff that can't swallow small stuff. And this is what the bug fixing process looks like.
Actually, I just realized that there's this adjusted property that should automatically adjust it, but that is not used properly here when checking, so I'll have to go through the code to check all usages of this engulfing size
And the hunt continues.
variable. And oh no, yeah, no, that was incorrect. That is indeed what should have already the calculated stuff, but it is not correct. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we can continue.
All right, we have another future question. Would genetic disease be possible? And Juzo has already mentioned this could be useful for visual differences such as albinism. That's when a creature is purely white, it has no pigments in its fur or skin. For things like CF, I'm actually not sure what CF is. And other, go ahead.
How it's like abbreviated with cystic fibrosis, just sort of like a, I understand, kind of a lung issue that early on would kill a lot of people pretty young, but we have medicines now so they can survive much better.
It does sound like playing an individual organism with something like that seems like a quite random handicap to just hand on to the player.
Did everyone
Yeah, but
see that? See that bit? That confirms that one more planning board thing is actually fixed. Indigestible cells are ejected now. That is done.
Ah, very nice. See,
Yeah,
that's why we got to show the Thrive gameplay so you can see that live. Our podcasts are only for the keen of eye.
Yeah, also sorry about not scrolling the Discord chat for a bit. I'll scroll it now.
Oh, the users
but-
have not even been seeing the chat this whole time. Okay.
But I
Yeah,
would
it was just like 7 or 8 messages, so it's fine now.
I'm sure no one said anything important.
Yeah, what I was gonna say before that happened was maybe in like the Civ stages and whatnot, we could have genetic diseases be present to work on like disease related science stuff, but in like the creature gameplay and stuff, probably not.
I feel like, and this isn't policy obviously, that when you have multiple people, because you're doing some kind of society, and there's something you can do about disease, even if just mitigate it, and that makes sense as gameplay, whereas before that point, that's just randomly stabbing the player. That's the equivalent to the old, should we have a feature where an asteroid hits your planet and your game just ends? But on the small scale, just, yep, this organism's probably going to die. Sorry, life's not fair.
I mean, yeah, like that's why I wouldn't do it for the creature stuff, individualized stuff, but later stages it could definitely be good. Because I mean, we're probably gonna have multiple different research paths, I would assume, at that point, and one of them will probably be medicine related stuff.
Well, we'll find out when we reach
And,
retirement age and start making Civ stage, right?
well, like, yeah, maybe in 100 years.
Society and industrial stage. I need to use the correct stage names. I am a developer. We do not have a civilization stage. We have society and industrial.
I do the same thing, honestly.
We can make each other better. All right.
Yes.
New question. Why do the AI species not conform to the MP limit per generation? Seems they can grow in size much faster than the player. Unless anyone else wants to interject, this is probably a good question for me. So I did an entire video on this that I can probably post, but the short answer is the AI cells actually use a completely different strategy. They are not playing the game like you and I are. I'm going to put this in the live stream chat because that is a silly thing to put on the Discord where no one can copy paste it. But essentially, they use a system purely based on auto evo. That little thing you see that rates your cell, that actually gets to decide what the AI cells do, and they are actually randomly picking some organelles they could add, or existing organelles to duplicate, or organelles to remove. So they pretty much ignore MP costs entirely, and are doing a very different system. The video I linked has a lot of the details on how that system works. Very long tangent to get into now, and I'm sure I wouldn't remember all the facts if I did. Did anyone else have stuff to add on that?
I'll just say that it is a very old system that basically has gotten only very minor tweaks since like 0.4.x days. So it's very old code that has been ported around a ton and only gotten a few small tweaks, but the overall mutation algorithm has been the same.
It's something that has been a personal project of mine for a while, both on and off Thrive now. That video goes into more details. We've had quite a few people suggest new ways to handle that simulated evolution, one of the biggest open questions in Thrive. I have proposed and prototyped some other solutions. More details in the links. I'll avoid taking up the entire rest of this Thrive stream.
Did I actually just get a complete game lockup?
Ooh, another bug?
I think it would seem so.
Do we have any kind of logs in the Steam version for if someone gets... Alright, like, if someone gets a lockup like this, what would you like them to do as a player to be able to help you fix this problem? Like, is there any information they can send you?
Like, I mean, I'm running the game from a debugger, and even I don't get any information from this. So,
All right, well, then to the players, don't feel bad if this happens to you and you cannot give us any coherent answers, but this
I
is
think, yeah, I think stuff is locked up somewhere inside the Godot game engine.
Well, keep us updated if you find out why it crashed. And then a follow-up question, which is pretty similar, also an auto-evo question. Have you thought about giving an evolutionary benefit to the excess ATP production you need to build before you can place a nucleus? Yes, we actually have some dev forum posts about that topic. At the end of the day, there is no real reason to have that excess ATP, and frankly, under the game rules we have, Darwinian evolution would not produce a eukaryote, because it does kind of require you pre-plan some of the evolution. We have looked into some advantages to nucleus. We have that, for example, there is a damage reduction. You'll notice if you're a eukaryote, you actually take less damage from like floating toxins, for example. So, short answer is we have thought a lot about it. It is one of the bigger mysteries of why A, do you want to be a eukaryote, and B, what leads you to being a eukaryote? Because it's kind of one of those, it's kind of a tech upgrade in the cell stage, which is not exactly how evolution works. Did anyone else want to add anything to that? Oh, Rubisco, yes. The organelle we've been talking about early in this stream, which can take ATP and turn it into glucose, that might be a reason to have excess ATP for a change, which would help with this process. If we have nothing else, and feel free to cut me off always, guys, I will be moving through the forum thread still, because it looks like we still have no more YouTube stuff. Do you plan to add other gases to the atmosphere as the environment gets more complex, such as hydrogen sulfide? Open to anyone with thoughts. Game Dungeon is saying it's in the game as the chemical compound. Actually, yeah, isn't hydrogen sulfide just the greenish yellow stuff? I mean, I know we divide between compounds in the environment as clouds and compounds in the atmosphere as just percentages. I can't say I know the reason for that difference, but I presume we will continue on it unless there's a reason to change the plan. Moving forward, when do you plan to start working on convolution services, and when will it be done? That is a question I would love to pass to Nuns, who is not here right now. But last I heard, they had the last work on that. I know it's been going on for a while.
Yeah, this is a case where Nansaf has all of the work. He recently said that he might get back to it sometime soon, but like this is like a really sporadic and unpredictable when stuff happens. So the honest answer is that, well, we don't know, and this is the reason why 3D membranes is not on the micro roadmap, because this is one of the things that I probably couldn't, without spending a ton of time getting familiar with this stuff, to to get this to work, so it might get even skipped entirely, even when we announce microbe state is complete.
We'll just have flat microbes as they... I've always wondered if that's just how they appear when they are squished into a little microscope slide, or if cells really look like that. It's a question for any pure theorist we'd have around, but that's my question and not the viewer's question, so it's not a priority. Got one from the YouTube side of things. When cell part unlock system? I know we had a PR that got pretty far for that if I recall correctly, actually got abandoned. So it looks like we lost that particular attempt to implement it. But I was not there for the details of that adventure. So I guess the answer is when someone works on it, because as I recall, there are no active PRs. It's definitely something we want to do, and I assume we have some code for it, but it is not immediately close, but maybe closer than we think. We don't know. Rolling back to the community forums. How many days are there in Thrive? And a follow-up question by a different user, days, question mark? I'm going to leave that completely open to the floor.
Well, I guess technically infinite days, because we don't have a date counter or anything in the game.
I mean, if you don't have the day-night cycle on, I guess there's only one day. It just never ends and lasts hundreds of millions of years.
Eternal day.
So the answer is 1 or infinity. How's that for your answer? Here is a question. Someone asked 3 questions, so I guess I should just pick 2 of them. All right. They are all future feature questions. Let's see. Do you want to answer about structures and environment damage, natural disasters, or weather simulation? I think I'll leave this to anyone who has interesting stuff to say about any of those 3 ideas. This is all just future talk, so we can be vague.
I guess I can say that I hope that when designing the whatever terrain system we have, is that it allows destroying the existing terrain so that it can be modified and those modifications are saved. That's about everything I can say at this early stage.
I'd like to see that too, personally. And Game Dungeon apparently has researched weather sims, which is probably the first step to implementing stuff, I suppose. I never researched my stuff. We have just one question from Gamera 6000. Will Thrive have giant-sized creatures like the epics in Spore?
If the auto ebook creates it, then yes. But probably not that massive.
We have a simple answer from Game Dungeon. No, because gravity. I think I can speak for most of Thrive's developers at this point that, we lean on what's at least feasible. I think anything big enough to be in that kaiju category of giant monsters that smash cities is just not something you would see evolving. So, there have been massive and impressive animals that our ancestors would have and did call monsters in the real world, but if you want something 1,000 stories tall shooting lasers out of its eyes, there are some other more speculative, more fantastical games that might suit your needs just as well. Then we can go to our last community forum question, which is about symbiosis. I'm curious how you'd handle stuff like gut bacteria and infections. I think we covered disease, and I think the gut bacteria question is a little bit different because we're not saying you're playing as the symbiote. Do we care about, when you make your creature, what other microbes are inside it, or do we think that's going to be too much detail in the future? All right, sounds like it might just be an automatic thing looking at the text to read for all you people. Yeah, I would guess we're not going to see too much extraordinary detail on that. I don't really know what you'd put in a gut bacteria editor, and we're certainly not going to write anything that detailed. So you can always say there are gut bacteria.
I mean, we have to balance the amount of detail the player needs to manage at every point in the game. So I think if the game is starting to look like there's not enough stuff to do in like the aware stage, then we might add some kind of micromanagement thing like that. But I don't think it's the first feature we'll try to add there to see what we can put in there to make interesting gameplay and choices.
Maybe every stage will just filter out more and more casuals till by aware stage they're just like, more detail, the game's not complicated enough. But I have certainly not seen in the Let's Plays of Thrive people complaining that they understood the science too fast. #50gens asks, will there be a cloud for sunlight? I enjoy this question. I don't think 50gens was asking for an answer. If you go check the sun, do not look directly at it, but if you check the sun, you will notice it does not form in a cloud that moves through the ocean. It comes down as either a wave or a particle. Ask a physicist, not me. Gaming Cat asks, what would be multicellular organelles, neuron and the other one, actually do in the early multicellular stage? So we have the neuron, and I think axion is the other one. And I guess the question is, what is the purpose of those? Why are we adding those to our multicellular creatures? I actually don't know the immediate answer in early multicellular, so someone else will have to jump in here.
Sorry, what was the question?
In multicellular, there are some new organelles you can add, like the neuron and I believe the muscle fiber is the other one. So the question is, what are those organelles doing for you? What is the intended gameplay purpose once we get to that point?
Well, the idea is that you use the cell editor to edit the tissue types. So the way you can design like skeletal muscles versus like stomach muscles, you would use the cell editor to like maybe upgrade the myofibril organelle to have different properties for it in different cell types, and then you use that cell type in the body plan editor. Like similarly, when you want to specify your brain, you add the axon to a cell type, and then you have a brain tissue type, and you can place that brain tissue type. Like
So
that.
can I just
That's
ahead.
like that. That's the intention, that we can keep using the familiar cell editor for various things later in the game.
So can I have a brain cell that is also a muscle cell that is also a bladder cell, and then just be all one thing?
Well, I guess, but like we should scale like the body cost, that it would be extremely hugely expensive in terms of calories required, as well as how much stuff you need to eat to grow. Like it would be balanced based on realism, that we don't see such stuff happening on Earth because things actually have a cost to them, and keeping costs down is a very good way to make sure that you're surviving well. Like even now in microbe states, if you slap 10 of each organelle on your species, it's going to end pretty badly.
So just like free swimming cells want to specialize as one kind of species, the cells inside a mixed body tend to specialize for the greater whole. And then that organism tends to be specialized in an ecosystem.
And I got another new crash. This time from the C# side, so it should be fixable, but I was using a native debugger to try to find the place where the game froze up, but decided to give me a different kind of bug here.
I just want to mention how many other game studios will not only show you live bugs during the live stream, but also announce when those bugs happen. That's transparency, folks. Do we have any additional questions on either side? It looks like we might have actually gotten to the end of all our list this time around. Unless people have more stuff they want to chime in about on either side of the stream, or if we want to watch Hereline and debug more bugs.
Yeah, I guess the precaution of only allowing 2 questions per post on the pre-stream questions was maybe a bit unwarranted this time, but at least we got through all of the questions. No problem, so.
Well, we always have our forums open. It's not like we go away to a mysterious tower after this. You can always ask extra questions if you have them. And it looks like we got a new YouTube question. Will late game be like Hearts of Iron or other Paradox strategy games? I imagine we have a variety of answers for that on the team, of which 2 of our devs are now typing in an answer.
I think it fits Thrive much more to have a real-time time strategic stages than switching to a turn-based. And also I find the 4X games to be pretty
Pretty what?
good things to learn concepts from. See like what works, what we could consider doing.
If you had to pick a particular game as inspiration, what comes to mind immediately?
I mean, the most obvious is Civilization, but make it not turn-based. Like
Maybe when we get to the...
I think like the building and research parts will be like the main points of the Thrive state, so it is not as much like nitty-gritty management like Europa Universalis 4, like where you already have pretty much built up all of the provinces and stuff, and you just basically sometimes pick new buildings to build.
So I think between that and the chat, we've got Civilization, EU, RimWorld, Stellaris. I'm sure we could name a lot of other strategy games to use as potential inspiration. But it is a long way off. So that's just kind of conjecture for fun. Someone asked, can I colonize the universe? The answer is yes, eventually. Oh, and one more question. This probably goes straight to Hiralainen, and I'm sorry for asking it to you. What is the worst bug you ever found when debugging?
Well, the worst bug to have is one you cannot see when you are debugging. Like someone tells you about a bug and you just cannot find it. Or you don't have any information on how to try to even search for it. Like if your only choice is to like try to play the game for 2 hours and hope the bug occurs, like that's not very good use of my time, because I could fix like 3 or 4 known bugs within that time. And even then I still might never see that one specific bug happening.
Did you have a lot of those with this last update?
There is at least that one bug where one person has the cell rotation just completely lock up sometimes. And I think now after the full release there's been a couple of bug reports that look like they are going to be really annoying to try to figure out, but I'll need to keep a positive outlook next week and try to work through the list of bugs. First I think I can solve, and then just give it a go with the rest to see how many of them can be fixed, and of course I'll be very happy if someone can find reproduction steps for a reported bug, or even better, submit a random PR that shows up out of nowhere and fixes a major bug.
Prefixes are always best, but when in doubt, if you're reporting a bug, if at all possible, tell us exactly how you can make it happen, because if we can make the bug happen, that's the first step in fixing it.
Yeah, just today I read a Steam review that it was thankfully positive, but the review just said it crashed.
I'm concerned they consider that a positive. All right. Well, it looks like we might have reached end of questions yet again. I don't remember how Buckley ends this, or if we have a final note after the Q&A part. It's been a while since we did this, and I wasn't on the last one.
Well, yeah, usually the questions don't stop, or at least they don't stop until we like reach the 2-hour mark. But I guess this time we've run out of questions early. Which usually never happens. Well, I guess the reason might be that we are down to just 30 concurrent viewers, so that's a bit lower than usual streams. But we did have initial viewership that was pretty higher than normal at 66 people.
I mean, when Buckley leaves, is there any reason to keep watching this crap?
True. Maybe some people decided that now's the time to exit.
Well, I hope we have answered everyone's questions to satisfaction. We've at least accomplished our live stream mission here. Any final words from people? Otherwise, I will make general end of stream noises. I'm not the one who can turn it off or conclude. And I don't want to cut anyone off who's got one more last thing to say.
I guess that is a no, so I guess that means it is time to end the stream. Thank everyone who joined us, all the people who asked questions, and hope that everyone has a fun time with the new release and they don't report too many major bugs to cross us under.
But if you see a bug, please tell us.
Yeah, and preferably how you found the bug. That would help a ton.
We did a lot of work this time. The cost is going to be a little bit of bugginess and not as many features, but it will pay off in the future. Thrive has a long way left to go.
Do you want to answer that last 50 gens question in chat, or?
Oh, I must have missed it.
It's the third message from the last.
Okay. Do you want to answer it or do you want to pass it to me? I can certainly talk about Auto Evo to no end.
That just seems like that's related to what we talked about before, but just to clarify that the Auto Evo has a very specific mutations algorithm, and well, as Thrive is open source, you can go and read that. Like that's the source of information on what that is.
If you want a visual description, I made a video called Beating Darwin, Auto Evo, and Thrive or something like that. You can search it up. I did it with cartoons by our very own Rose explaining that, but essentially it's just a random chance to add, remove, or mutate parts, and then it tests those in a little virtual environment. And I would recommend you over to the specialized 15-minute video I did for more details on that process. I find it really interesting.
Yeah, I think mutilate is actually the right word for many things the Auto Evo system creates.
My video also covers some of my thoughts on why Auto Evo makes some silly looking things. And I see your thumbs up, 50 gens, so hopefully I have led you to the answers and information you're looking for.
So with that, I think we can end the stream. So time to say bye, everyone.